The summer heat pressed down on the cracked asphalt of Route 9 like a heavy hand, making the air shimmer and dance above the blacktop. Inside Big Earl's diner, the ceiling fans spun lazy circles, pushing the smell of coffee and bacon grease around the room. At a corner booth, 6 members of the Devil's Disciples Motorcycle Club sat nursing their third round of coffee, their leather vests draped over the backs of chairs, chrome chains catching the afternoon light. Marcus Reaper Johnson, the chapter president, was in the middle of a story about a breakdown near Tulsa when the diner's glass door flew open with such force it rattled in its frame. Every head in the place turned toward the sound. A boy stood in the doorway, maybe 9 or 10 years old, his dark skin sheened with sweat, his chest heaving like he'd run a marathon. His white t-shirt was torn at the shoulder, and his sneakers were caked with red dust. But it was his eyes that caught Reaper's attention, wide, wild, filled with a terror that had no business being in a child's face. The boy's gaze swept across the diner, past the startled waitress holding a coffee pot, past the trucker at the counter, until they locked onto the cluster of bikers in the corner. For a moment, time seemed to suspend itself. Then the boy moved. He ran straight toward their booth, his footsteps slapping against the checkered linoleum floor. When he reached their table, he grabbed the edge with both hands, knuckles going pale with the force of his grip. "Please!" the boy gasped, the word breaking in the middle. "They took my mama! They took my baby sister! Please, you gotta help us!" Reaper exchanged glances with his brothers. Snake, his vice president, leaned forward. "Slow down, kid. Who took them?" The boy shook his head frantically, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his cheeks. "These men? 3 of them. We were at the rest stop just down the road. Mama was changing Jasmine's diaper in the car, and these men, they grabbed them, shoved them in a white van." His voice cracked. "I tried to stop them. I tried, but one of them pushed me down and they drove off, and I didn't know what to do. I saw your motorcycles out front and I just thought—" He broke off, his whole body shaking now. Reaper felt something cold settle in his chest. He'd seen a lot in his 47 years, much of it hard, some of it ugly, but this hit different. "Your daddy?" asked Tiny, the club's sergeant-at-arms, though there was nothing tiny about his 6'5" frame. "He's deployed," the boy said. "Afghanistan. It's just been me and Mama and Jasmine for 8 months now." Reaper was already standing, reaching for his vest. "How long ago?" "Maybe 20 minutes. I ran all the way here. I tried to call 911, but my phone died and—" "Rita," Reaper called to the waitress, "call the county sheriff. Tell them there's been an abduction at the Route 9 rest stop. White van, 3 male suspects, 1 woman, and a infant." He looked back at the boy. "Your mama's name?" Keisha Patterson, and my sister is Jasmine. She's only 6 months old." Rita was already on the phone behind the counter. Reaper put a hand on the boy's shoulder, feeling the tremors running through the small frame. "What's your name, son?" "Malik." "Okay, Malik. I'm Reaper. This here is Snake, Tiny, Ghost, Bones, and Wrench. You did good coming to find help. Real good. Now we're going to do everything we can to get your mama and sister back. You understand me?" Malik nodded, but fresh tears spilled down his face. They were so scared. Jasmine was crying and Mama was screaming, and I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't— "Hey," Reaper's voice was firm but not unkind. "You did something. You came for help. That took guts. Now we're going to use that 20-minute head start to track them down." Snake was already at the door, scanning the parking lot. "Which direction did they head?" "East," Malik said, "toward the state highway." Wrench pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "There's only 2 ways to go from here if they're heading east: Old County Road or the state highway. Highway's got cameras at the intersection." "County Road's got nothing but farmland and abandoned warehouses," Ghost added, his voice quiet but certain. "If I was snatching someone, I'd avoid cameras." Reaper nodded. "Makes sense. Tiny, you and Bones take the highway, check the cameras. Rest of us are going down County Road. Malik," he looked down at the boy, "you're staying here with Rita. Sheriff should be here any minute." "No," Malik's voice was small but fierce. "I'm coming with you. What if they hurt them while you're looking? What if you need me to identify the van?" "Kid, she's my mama. There was steel in those young eyes now, the kind that came from fear transformed into determination. "I ain't waiting here doing nothing. I can't." Something in the boy's face reminded Reaper of his own son, grown now. But there'd been a time when those eyes had looked up at him with the same desperate need to matter, to help, to do something in a world that felt too big and too cruel. "Fine," Reaper said, "but you stay on the bike with me, and you do exactly what I say when I say it. Deal?" "Deal." Within 3 minutes, they were on the road. Malik clung to Reaper's waist, his small arms barely reaching around the man's broad frame. The wind whipped past them as the motorcycles roared down Route 9, then turned onto the dusty expanse of Old County Road. The landscape opened up around them, fields gone to seed, rusting farm equipment sitting in tall grass like the bones of metal dinosaurs, the occasional house set far back from the road. Reaper's eyes scanned everything, looking for anything out of place. They'd covered maybe 4 miles when Snake, riding ahead, threw up a hand signal. The group slowed, pulling onto the shoulder. Snake pointed to fresh tire tracks cutting off the main road onto a narrow gravel drive that led toward a cluster of old warehouse buildings in the distance. "Those tracks are new," Snake said. "Probably in the last half hour." Reaper felt Malik's grip tighten. Could be them. Could be. Or could be someone with legitimate business. Either way, we check it out. He pulled out his phone, sending a quick text to Tiny with their location, then looked at the others. "Quiet approach. We don't know what we're walking into." They left the bikes behind some overgrown brush and moved on foot toward the warehouses. The buildings loomed ahead, their corrugated metal sides streaked with rust, windows broken or boarded up. Behind Reaper, Malik was silent, though the man could feel the boy's fear like a live wire. As they got closer, a sound cut through the afternoon stillness, a baby crying. Malik jerked forward, but Reaper's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder. "Easy," he whispered. "We do this smart or we don't do it at all." They crept around the side of the first building. Through a gap in the metal siding, Reaper could see inside, a white van, its back doors open. 3 men stood nearby, their voices carrying through the quiet space. "She won't stop screaming," one of them complained. "This wasn't supposed to be this complicated. Just shut her up. We need to make the call, get the ransom demand in before they involve too many cops." Ransom. Reaper's jaw clenched. These weren't just opportunistic criminals. This was planned. He caught Snake's eye, gestured a series of silent signals. His VP nodded, moving to circle around to the far side of the building with Ghost. Wrench stayed with Reaper and Malik, positioned near what looked like a side entrance. Through the gap, Reaper could see Keisha now, sitting on the floor with her back against the van's tire, her baby clutched tight to her chest. There was a cut above her eye, and her hands were bound with zip ties. She was whispering to Jasmine, trying to soothe the infant's cries, but her own face was streaked with tears. Malik made a small sound, quickly stifled. Reaper squeezed his shoulder. The next few minutes unfolded with the kind of careful precision that came from years of brotherhood and trust. Snake and Ghost found their positions. Reaper texted a countdown. Then, on 3, they moved. The side door crashed open under Reaper's boot. "Nobody move!" The 3 men spun toward the sound, reaching for weapons, but Snake and Ghost were already coming through the opposite entrance. Tiny and Bones, having received the location, roared up on their bikes at that exact moment, the thunder of their engines filling the warehouse. It was over in seconds. Faced with 6 large, angry bikers and the sound of sirens wailing in the distance, Rita had done her job. The kidnappers' hands went up. Wrench and Ghost moved in, zip-tying the men with their own supplies, while Snake freed Keisha. "Mama!" Reaper released Malik, and the boy sprinted across the warehouse floor. Keisha looked up, her face transforming from terror to relief so profound she collapsed forward. Malik crashed into her, wrapping his arms around both her and his baby sister, all 3 of them crying now. "You're okay," Malik kept saying over and over. "You're okay, Mama. I got help. I found them and they came and you're okay." Keisha pressed her face into her son's hair, then looked up at the bikers standing around her, these rough-looking men who descended on this warehouse like avenging angels. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Reaper crouched down to their level. "You're safe now. Sheriff's almost here. They'll take care of these guys." "I don't understand," Keisha said, shaking her head. "Why? Why did they take us? One of the tied-up men spat. Your husband's unit intercepted a shipment overseas, cost certain people a lot of money. This was supposed to be payback leverage. Reaper's expression went dark. You targeted a soldier's family while he's deployed? The disgust in his voice could have stripped paint. By the time the sheriff's deputies arrived, the scene was secured. The 3 kidnappers sat bound and cursing on the warehouse floor. Keisha sat in the back of the van, nursing Jasmine, while Malik refused to leave her side. The boy kept one hand on his mother's arm, as if afraid she might disappear again if he let go. Sheriff Martinez surveyed the scene, then looked at Reaper. You boys do this? Kid found us at Big Earl's. We just helped out. Martinez nodded slowly. Lucky thing he did. We got the call about the van, but we were checking the highway. Might have been another hour before we expanded the search out here. He glanced at the kidnappers. These guys are part of that smuggling ring the feds have been tracking, going after a soldier's family. That's going to make this federal real quick. As the deputies loaded the suspects into patrol cars and paramedics checked over Keisha and Jasmine, Malik approached Reaper. The boy held out his hand, a formal gesture that seemed too old for his years. Thank you, sir, Malik said. I didn't know what to do, where to go, but when I saw you all at the diner, I don't know. I felt like maybe you'd understand, that you'd help. Reaper shook the small hand, impressed by the firm grip. You did good, Malik. Real good. You kept your head when it counted. My dad says that's what soldiers do, Malik said. Stay calm under pressure, find solutions, get the mission done. Your dad's teaching you right. Reaper reached into his vest, pulled out a card with the club's contact information. You tell your dad when he gets home that he's got friends here. And if your family ever needs anything at all, you call this number. Understand? Malik took the card, studying it carefully before tucking it into his pocket. Then, surprising Reaper, the boy wrapped his arms around the big man's waist in a quick, fierce hug. Thank you for saving my mama, he whispered. When Malik pulled back, Reaper had to clear his throat before speaking. You saved her, son. You're the one who came for help. Don't ever forget that. As the sun began to set, painting the warehouse walls in shades of orange and gold, the Devil's disciples mounted their bikes. Keisha stood with Malik and Jasmine, watching them prepare to leave. The baby had finally stopped crying, content now in her mother's arms, and Keisha held her close, as if she'd never let go again. How can I ever repay you? Keisha called out. Reaper fired up his engine, the rumble filling the evening air. He looked at her over his shoulder, at this family that had been fractured and was now whole again. You already did. You raised a son who knows how to be brave when it matters. That's payment enough. The motorcycles rolled out, 6 bikes in formation, heading back toward Route 9 and Big Earl's Diner, where their coffee had long since gone cold. In the side mirror, Reaper caught a last glimpse of Malik standing tall beside his mother, one hand raised in farewell. Sometimes, Reaper thought, the road took you where you were supposed to be. Sometimes you were just passing through, stopping for coffee, killing time between here and somewhere else. And sometimes you were exactly where you needed to be at exactly the right moment. 20 minutes had made all the difference. 20 minutes and one brave boy who'd looked at 6 rough strangers and seen hope. As they turned onto the highway, Snake pulled up alongside Reaper, giving him a nod. No words were needed. They'd ridden together long enough to understand. This was why they wore the patch, not for the reputation or the rebel image, but for moments like this, when the world showed its teeth and someone needed to push back. When a little boy needed someone to answer his desperate plea, "Please help us," they'd answered, and they'd help again whenever the call came. That was the code. That was brotherhood. That was what the patch meant. The sun sank lower as they rode on, 6 shadows moving across the American landscape, leather and chrome and the rumble of engines that sounded like thunder rolling in from a distant storm. Behind them, a family held each other close, safe now. And that made all the difference.